Welcome to Leadership Rediscovered. I'm your host, Laura Siebold, and I am so thrilled to have my dear friend, John Fahey, here joining us today. John, thank you so much for being on the show. I will not go into John's formal bio because he has a great background. If you don't know John, you can look into it. But just a few highlights from his very successful career. He is currently the Senior Vice President of United Bank, leads the sales and marketing division there. He also was elected to run the worldwide West Virginia Alumni Association, which we will talk about in a little bit. And he was also one of the founding members of Centra Bank, which is where I had the good fortune of meeting him. So we will cover a lot of that in the episode today. And John, let's just jump right into it, if you're good with that. Your role right now at United Bank, as I think about bankers, I was a banker with you at one point. Bankers are respected community members, community leaders, and really trusted advisors. And as you think about, there's not as many people nowadays that people can go to, not just with banking questions, all kinds of questions about life. And I'm curious to hear from you, as you've been interacting with so many people in the community, what's the temperature out there?
Well, first of all, Laura, I want to zero in on what you said about trusted advisors. I admire what you do and what Jim Matuga does and what Frank Vitale does here in West Virginia. I mean, starting your own business to coach people and bring them along and make them better in their businesses, make them better in their organizations, make them better individuals. It's not a job, it's a calling. It's a true calling. And what you all, and LaDotta Taylor's another one of them that does this. And what you all do helps so many people. So you yourself are coaches and advisors and leaders and whatever you call yourself. And I admire you all that have set out your own shingle and do this for people. Not only would I admire it, I would and do recommend all the individuals I just mentioned, especially you. And so good job on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. And I do love having the opportunity to talk to people and interact with them and like you. And I think, though, you probably have a different pulse on what's going on. So I would just love to hear, your take, especially with everything that's been happening over the past few years. We've talked about the great resignation, the great reflection, and you and I had a conversation recently about big changes that you're seeing in people's habits. So I would just love to hear, how are folks doing? What's that temperature like?
Well, to state the obvious, COVID halted everything.
Mm-hmm.
It halted everything, and the good thing about it is it caused people to take a breath on many things. If you think everything slowed down or shut down, you're badly mistaken. People had a chance to take care of chores that they never had in the past over those 2 years of COVID. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is not cleaning the garage or dusting the ceiling fans. What I mean about that is they had a chance to take care of their administrative chores, things that they never have had a chance to do in maybe decades. And let me give you an example. Local insurance agents have never been busier. And the reason that is because the mailings that they send out, that you and I get in our mailbox or our electronic mailbox or our text messages or in-person calls, people, when they were down for COVID, not going to their kids' sporting events or not going to the charitable events or not doing any extracurricular, they took a time to actually read these direct mails and emails and things like that. And they go, my goodness, this is the case of insurance. My goodness, I haven't priced out or changed my insurance coverage since I was 16 years old. And now is a chance for me to compare and contrast and look at new auto insurance coverage. Mm-hmm. The people that have seen it in the biggest way are Sirius Radio and Comcast. Mm-hmm. People have the same channels that they had when they were 18 years old, and they realized, hey, I don't listen to this, but I want this. I listen to this. You couldn't get on the lines to get a hold of Comcast or Sirius Radio to make changes, because same way with cable television.
Mhm.
You had channels you don't use anymore. Maybe your kids are grown. You don't need Disney and SpongeBob and those
Right.
networks, but your kids are grown now, so you need a new thing. You couldn't get a hold of Comcast because of the changes people wanted to make. In my case, at banking, people had a chance to look at their retirement plans
Mm.
and saying, "Hey, this isn't doing well enough," or their brokerage accounts, and saying, "I have stocks in here that haven't moved since
Mhm.
1990." They've had a chance to do this. They've gotten around to the administrative chores. America has gotten around to their administrative chores,
Mhm.
and they're moving. And when there's movement, there's additional success and revenue for insurance agents and for
Mhm.
banks and for retirement planners and groups like that. And that's just touching the surface of what people are changing.
Right.
They realize that maybe their cleaning service isn't as good as the ladies next door, or things like that. But people, this has caused people to have a great change.
Yes.
And my line for this, I heard this on a I don't know, a motivational show or something like that. In order for things to remain the same for you, this is post-COVID.
Mhm.
In order for things to remain the same for you, we have to change.
Yes. Ooh, so interesting. In order for things to remain the same, we have to change.
We have to change now.
Hmm.
Because of what I just said, is people are looking and they're analyzing, and it's
Yeah.
giving them time. It's the first time in their
Yes.
lives that they haven't had to go to a sporting event, a charitable event, as I said.
Yeah. And just to rethink a lot of things, rethink relationships,
Yes.
rethink that I don't know if I want to live in this house anymore.
Right.
I don't know if I want to live in this town anymore. And then
Mhm.
rethinking jobs, which I think we're seeing a lot
Rethinking
of
jobs.
that.
I think you had Junius Lewis on here. People
Yes.
are rethinking their faith. They've skipped 2 years of not going to church, essentially shut because of shutdowns.
Right.
And people are rethinking everything.
Yes.
Do I need to support my church more and go more and be a better person because at least I haven't gone in 2 years? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I think about when knowing what I know about your career, your history, your background. I mean, you've worked for massive technology companies that had very strong cultures, very specific rules around how employees acted and operated. Then fast forward with a startup, which I want to touch on in a minute, and now with United, which I believe has about 3,000
3,500 employees.
3,500
Yes.
employees. And so I know in your role, you're traveling within West Virginia, but also outside of West Virginia as well to the other branches. And I'm just curious, how is United handling the remote work versus you have to be in the office? And I know you've experienced both in your career, so I'd just love to hear your perspective on that too.
Well, we're wrestling with that. We still have a number of non-customer facing employees that have not returned yet to our office buildings. So like so many other places, we do have a date in mind for them to return. But for people that are lobbying for that, for saying, "Oh, come on, let me stay at home, let me be a remote employee," and I'll tell you what I'm telling them, but we want to retain them because they're good and they're good at, and we were surprised to the good, Laura. We were surprised to the good of the people got their work done. They accomplished as much, maybe even more, while they were at home.
Yes.
They got their work done. We didn't dream that we'd have the productivity that we have at home. However, what I tell, especially young people today, I'm telling our internship people this day, that may be hired in the fall or the spring, I'm telling them, I'm saying, okay, as a young person, you can choose to work remotely,
right?
And you can choose to keep your head down in front of a PC in your pajamas if you want to, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. But if you're expecting promotions and advancement and raises, and I said, you must come back to the office. People need to see you. They need to see you interact with team members. They need to see you politic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot of bad things about the water cooler, you know,
Yes.
the water cooler gossip, and COVID did away with that as people stayed home.
Right.
But there also is a lot of good things about the water cooler.
Yes.
Is people get the chance to compliment each other. They need a chance to run their ideas by each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do that from home. You
No.
just cannot do that from home. Not totally against it.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain jobs that can do it, that can do things from home. But if you want that advancement track,
Mm-hmm.
you probably should make a point of being in the office.
Mm-hmm. Seen and be seen.
See and be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to be that person. And I put big quotes in that person. Is that, where is Laura?
Yeah.
Where is Fahey? Where
Yeah.
are they? Are they at home? Are
I
they
think
traveling?
people did ask that about
Well,
me.
sure. They always ask that about me. I mean, both community members and
Yeah.
and fellow workers. Where is he?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so hopefully I'm out doing something that has at least indirect benefit
Right.
to the bank.
But yeah, you don't want people looking for you and I do worry about that. And I think you did a great job of touching on the pros and the cons
Mhm.
of both working only at home versus working only in the office. But I do worry for people that, yes, they may get a lot more productivity done. They may be able to, manage kind of work and life and all of that better at home. But the downside of that is, yes, you sometimes, unfortunately, out of sight, out of mind. And so if you're not there, at least some of the time, maybe not every day, but if you're not there at least some of the time, making those connections, building those relationships, it probably, could have consequences in terms of career track and career path.
My advice to somebody that does choose to stay at home and going forward, they want to do total remote. And I'm not speaking for my own company. I'm speaking in general.
Yeah.
I say, answer your cell phone on the first ring every time, all the time, and do it more out, be available more hours than that 8-hour period.
Be accessible.
9 to 5, 8 to 5 or whatever it is, be accessible from 7:30 to 7:30.
Right.
And chances are you won't get a call, but answer it on the first ring. So people say, if you get that reputation of you can always get a hold of Laura, or you can always get a hold of John.
Yeah.
There's nothing better.
Yeah.
There's nothing better. Laura there's two things that you should get a reputation for, is being reachable, always being reachable. And the second thing is knowing what you're talking about when they do get a hold of you. Now, that's not to say you need to know everything,
Right.
but you can say, got to check that out and I'll get back to you, and for goodness sake, do get back to them. It's okay to say, I got to check it out with somebody else.
Yeah.
I'll track them down and find them, whatever the cost. If you get that in your repertoire, you're well on your way to being a leader.
Yeah. Well, because you're telling people you can count on me, number one, if you're available, accessible, and number two, I add value.
Yes.
If it's, I got a hold of you, but you never know the answer and you don't find out for me, then it's a question of what value are you bringing to the table.
In our particular business, Laura, it's not the closest branch. You'll be surprised. And this has been the same research for the past at least 2 decades. It's not the closest branch. It's not the hottest Apple Pay or product that you roll out. The main thing people look for in a banker is, do I know my banker? Does my banker know me? Third, which has nothing to do with what we're talking about, is people don't want to be nickeled and dimed to death. Right. So pricing, which is always, but think about that. It's not changed in our industry over all the internet banking and cryptocurrency, all the things that have come about. People want to know their banker, and they want their banker to know them. Number 1 and 2, consistently.
It's a relationship business.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of banking, let's turn the clock back to when I first met you, which was many decades ago.
Yeah, been a while.
Working at Centra Bank, you were a part of the founding team for Centra Bank, and I like to say that you were a part of a startup before startups were cool. A lot
Well,
cooler
thank
now.
you. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I would love to hear, especially in a leadership context, what that experience was like. There's a lot of great stories that have come out of that time from when you founded the bank, but just even, again, from more of a leadership perspective as well, what you learned about yourself as a leader, what you were exposed to within the leadership of starting the bank.
Best days of my life. Absolute best day, best 12, 13 years of my life. Never worked so hard.
Yes.
Never worked so hard
Yeah.
for any other organization, is because when it's your own and you take stockholders' money, those stockholders being your friends and neighbors and business associates.
They weren't strangers.
They were not strangers. So we'd be called out in a few years if we lost their money. So we worked very, very hard. Laura, it's funny. I'll go through this over the course of 12 years. For 8 of those years, we only advertised one thing. Only one thing. We answer the phone and you'll get a person. And that tagline, not a machine, not voicemail, not a text message, you get a person. That's all we advertise in the Dominion Post and on the billboards and with the Metro News and all that. You'll get a person.
Yes.
And we actually, I think we said by the second ring.
Yes.
By the second ring, and that caused us from going to 0 market share in 1999 to number 1 market share in 2006. That's passing up 4 or 5 organizations that were in business over 100 years. Number 1 Morgantown market share in that time. And it's because people want to get a hold of you.
Yes.
They want to talk to you. They want to, in some cases, they want to see you, but at least they want to get a hold of you. And they don't want, there's just no excuse for it. And I mean, that's why people get so frustrated with the airlines. It's why they get so frustrated with other organizations, Comcast or the cable company you can't get through to. That your wait is 20 minutes.
Yes.
Unacceptable.
Yes.
Just unacceptable.
Yeah, I mean, I was on hold the other day for an hour and 45 minutes with a company. I mean, that's and needed to talk to a human.
And needed to talk to a human to adjust what you had. Everything, everybody's circumstance is a special circumstance. Yeah. All those things that they list that you can take care of, press 1 for this or that. Yeah. It's never your problem.
No,
it's never my problem.
Customer service.
Yeah, customer service.
Give me a person.
Yeah. Agent.
Yeah.
Agent. We need an agent because your problem is not a billing problem. No. Your problem is not a programming problem. Your problem is not it's something special.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I realized from the hotel situation that everybody can't go to the concierge or otherwise the concierge would be overloaded.
True.
But all of us want concierge service. And that was the key to Centra Bank. We overstaffed. I mean, we had more than enough people. Yes. So we kept the lines down. We did vigilant hiring. I mean, yes. it was people with years of banking experience that knew what they were talking about, that knew how to do things, that were knowledgeable about banking, that were knowledgeable about Morgantown, that were knowledgeable about WVU, so they could talk more about it. Wasn't unusual for Janie Nealon to be recommending a dry cleaner to somebody rather than a banking question.
Right.
But part of the deal, hey, you're my banker. I have other questions because you've been around, and it's flattering. Banking is still one of those noble professions where people go to, and where they go to for more advice, as you pointed out in your kind introduction.
Yeah.
So
and being that trusted advisor, which is so important. If I think back to around that time, I think the years line up and add up here, but I wanted to talk about your time running the Alumni Association, because that is a big deal. I know you don't like to be made over, but that's a big deal. That was an elected role, correct?
It's an elected role. I was chairman of the board for 2 years.
Wow.
We had 200 and between 2 and 300,000 alumni out there. I hit 29 states. I did not. I do need to correct you a little bit. I did not run it because we had a wonderful chief executive officer and a wonderful chief operating officer, and Steve Douglas and Kevin Barry, who were just so supportive of their chairman.
Wonderful.
But I hit 29 states and Puerto Rico, and as far as traveling, and it was the privilege of my life. I mean, to go. First of all, I was following a car on the interstate out of Miami, and it had a Florida license plate, but it had a proud WVU alumni license bracket holder. And this was just days after being elected, and I said, "Oh my God, I'm head of the whole organization. That I'm chairman of the whole organization that this group is. Every time I see a license plate bracket, I'm their chairman. So with that comes a lot of responsibility. So I made a point of traveling with Jim Clements, the president at that time, and traveling with Gordon Gee when Gordon came back. And I like to think we raised a little money, did a lot of good. It was so rewarding to hear West Virginian's story. The most rewarding thing to me, was finding these hidden success stories. There was, I ran into at one of our events, somebody we hadn't discovered. Picture this, Laura, she was executive vice president, one of the founders of Facebook.
Oh, wow.
Out at an Los Angeles event. And now she's become very involved. She just showed up, said, "Mr. Fahey, I'm a graduate. Like to think I've done pretty well, and I'd like to become more involved." I'd love to say that we found her before she found us, but we didn't. But one of our events that we were at was important enough for her to come to. Another situation, same situation with BB Clothes, the store in the malls called BB. I think I'm saying that right. And we're at an event, and the president and founder comes up to us and says, I'm a grad, haven't been connected, and I'd like to. He turned out to come back here to the School of Business to become a visiting professor for a few semesters to relive his Morgantown days, and did a magnificent job. But the message here is we had so many, West Virginians have so many leaders out there.
Yes.
And the leaders want to help people like you, Lauren, or people like Jim Matuga or Ladada, these leaders of big companies, Bob Reynolds and John Chambers and Verl Purdy, and they want to help young people like you become leaders, and they want to help all West Virginians.
Yes.
And so it's just so rewarding. How can I coach, or how can I give my tips to the young people to save them some steps and heartburn of what I've been through? And they want to do it. It's been so rewarding to run into those types. And I mean, we have but whether you're screaming successful or you're doing just fine, everybody has a love of West Virginia University, more than any other school I've seen.
Yeah.
And I have a master's from another institution, and it's not nearly as affectionately thought of as West Virginia. So we're lucky. We're very, very lucky, and the leadership now at WVU emphasizes that. Nobody emphasizes the outreach and creating a family like Gordon Gee and his group.
Yeah, and I think they really do, focus on that pride that mountaineers do have and feel.
Hmm.
And you're right, regardless of where they go around the country, around the world, they
Hmm.
still feel connected, and
Hmm.
it doesn't even matter how many years removed they are from it either.
But it was the privilege of a lifetime,
That's amazing.
and I enjoyed every minute of it. I'm glad it's over because
It's a lot of
I'm
work.
worn out.
Yeah.
I have to compliment my employer who backed me every step of the way. United Bank was the Richard Adams was and Rick Adams were so supportive of my travels,
Mm-hmm.
and being away from my day job.
Right, absolutely. But, great benefit from it getting out there
Thank
as
you.
well. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to hear, I know there's 60,000 books on Amazon about leadership and different models and articles. And I know you've been exposed to a lot of that and certainly have the educational pedigree too. But I want to hear John Fahey's definition of leadership and what it means to be a successful leader.
Things don't just happen.
Mm.
And by things don't just happen. If you're throwing a party, I boil everything down to food. But if you're throwing a party and have the best food and the best beverages and the great decorations,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody comes, what good is that?
Yeah.
What good is that? And so many times that happens. How many times have you been to something where at someone's home or someone's venue, and they've said and they forgot to double check with their guests, are they coming, is this a good day, and it's been
Mm-hmm.
empty. And I'm using that as an example for everything, is things that you have to work that angle too.
Yes.
You have to yes, you have to do wonderful food and beverage, but you have to get a hold of your guests and say, you're coming, I'm having this great party, I'm going to have a wonderful wonderful food and beverage, it's next to the pool, it's going to be fun. You need to work every angle, and that's where leadership drops, is people do not work every angle.
Mm-hmm.
And by that I mean things don't just happen.
Yeah.
You have to work at it, you have to think about it, and you, especially when it involves others,
Yes.
you have control over your food and beverage,
Right.
but you don't have control over your guests, and
Mm-hmm.
and you want to give them a reason not to blow it off.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with employees. It's the same way with trying to lead a group of team members to a successful goal,
Mm-hmm.
and this is what you do for a living, this coaching and this leadership, this leadership studies that you do is amazing, because we all need it. In my case, I have a kitchen cabinet around me and thank goodness they're my friends who do it for free.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or a beer now and then. But I have a kitchen cabinet of several people.
Yeah.
Frank Vitale, Ronnie Justice, people that have been accomplished in politics and I ask them for advice on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
There's a number of others that I won't go into, but sometimes you have to elevate it to somebody like you that's a pro, and walk me through this, or walk me, and hopefully it doesn't get to the point where you say walk me off the ledge.
Right.
That walk me off the ledge in a positive fashion.
Yeah.
But things don't just happen.
Mm.
And the second thing is, if you want to talk about so you see, I'm going with the very simple.
I love it.
The second thing is even more simple, is the world is run by those who show up. The world is run by those who show up.
Mm-hmm.
You can't bat at the balls that are thrown at you or pitched to you. You can't bat at the balls that are pitched to you if you're not there.
Right.
So people often wonder, why am I in trouble? Why am I in trouble?
Mm-hmm.
When they could have staved it off, early on in their crisis.
Mm-hmm.
They could have. The world's run. Show up.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have every answer, even if you don't have, you got to be prepared to.
Yeah.
And the third thing on John Fahey leadership, and this is the furthest thing from a marketing guy you'd probably hear, is you do need, and people will admire you for, you do need a command of the numbers.
Mm.
You have to have, in order to be any kind of a leader, you at least have to understand them, or have somebody right there whispering in your ear what they are, how, how are the numbers, how's the money affected here?
Mm-hmm.
How is the, what's my outcome financially?
Yes.
Yes. How, will we be around in 6 months if our numbers are bad? You have to have a command, and it's a fault of people like me that are totally external. But I did learn, and I'm a finance major.
Yeah, I was going to say
I did that. I did that because I was so focused on external. I said I better get some good quality command of what things cost, how expense control is worked, how to make money. And the days of going around and slapping backs and and handshaking, that's not enough.
No,
it's not enough anymore. And there used to be a whole profession of that. Hell, I was one of them. And now that profession has to have a command of the numbers.
Yeah. Oh, you struck a nerve on that one, especially because I love business and that's my background too, but I am shocked by how many people who are working in jobs that they don't know what their company does. They don't know who their customers are. They don't know what, competitive threats might exist out there in the world. And I think to myself, how do you do your job if you don't know all of that? Because, along the same lines of that, when people, say, well, how can I get ahead? How can I get promoted here? Learn the business and then realize how you can have a positive impact on the business.
There's a brand new, and by brand new, I mean in the last 15 years, there's a brand new, highly, highly paid occupation out there called risk manager. Any size company has a chief risk manager now, and that's all they do is just what you said. What are my threats? What could happen to me? A lot of it's numerical. A lot of it's not.
Right.
It's so to your point, that validates your point exactly, is the fact that this occupation exists. It's a highly paid position within companies and organizations, and probably just like a marketing manager or a human resource manager, it'll probably trickle down to small places too, where they're going to have one.
Somebody's going to have to be
Somebody's
going to
have, or at least have the duties of one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, but that's, So moral of the story, make nice with the CFO and your friends in the finance department and in the risk department too, because you can learn a lot.
Yeah.
And people like to talk about that too.
Yeah.
Asking people, what do you do? What's your role here? And learning from that, I think, is huge too, which I respect about you, because even though we worked in different departments, you would pull me into things sometimes within your department, and I got to learn a different side of the business.
Well, that's my version of coaching. And your version of coaching was the same. And that's probably what you do with your clients, is that you show them. You don't command them, and you don't insist. You show them. And that's the way. The best thing is to follow somebody that's done it well. And I think that type of a style will never go out of vogue.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's more of my personal belief, but I think we have a bit of I think crisis is probably too strong of a word, because there's a lot of crises going on right now, but there's a lack of leadership, and there's a gap in terms of opportunities for people to step up and lead. And I think we're at a time now where more, great and strong leadership is of greater importance. So I'd love to hear from you. What, opportunities do you see out there?
Well, first of all, to that point, I think we all desire a leader. Even the strongest, highest powered executive, even Jamie Dimon at J.P. Morgan. I think we all seek leaders and coaches, and the thing that I can say about leadership is select your leaders. It's going to be more than one, chances are, but you've got to strike a balance with your leaders. You have to strike a balance, and what I mean by that is, let's take a factory for example. You can't follow the engineer too far. You definitely follow his guidelines and his design and that. But if you follow him in his total, him or her in their total plan, you'll have the most expensive, never failing, long lasting product you had,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody can afford it.
Right.
Okay.
It'll be perfect.
Yeah.
But
You can't follow the marketing and sales guy like me. You can't follow him. Follow his or her tips and follow his or her plan to an extent. But if you followed somebody like me, you'd have all the sales in the world,
mm-hmm.
but your product wouldn't be worth a damn.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a piece of junk because
mm-hmm.
I've not paid attention to the product.
Mm-hmm.
If you follow let's see, there's the engineer. If you follow the human resource person too far, you'll have a perfect human resource structure, but however, nobody will do anything because they're just the perfect. They're the
robots.
They're robotic. Yeah, that well said. And God knows, don't follow the lawyers too far, or you'll just be tied up and in chaos all the time.
Right, red tape.
Yeah, you'll be tied up in the red tape all the time. And so what you do is you strike a balance. You follow the operational people. You follow the marketing and sales people. You can't follow, I forgot to say, the finance people. You'll have if you follow the finance people too far, you'll have the perfect tax return.
Right.
You'll have the absolute perfect tax return, but you won't sell anything.
Right.
So follow all those disciplines to extent, and that's where your judgment has to come into play.
Ooh, yeah.
That's where your judgment, you have to say, I'm going to follow the marketing person, for 15% of their conversation. I'm going to follow the engineer for 30% of their, I'm going to follow the accountant for 30% of their, and when you can, as a leader, when you can judge that balance, that's when things go really, really right.
Yeah. Well, and to me, to kind of circle back from more the beginning of the conversation, that's what your kitchen cabinet is for you, or I say personal board of directors. But your kitchen cabinet is comprised of different types of people, and you're going to take in and listen to their counsel and whatnot, but you're going to balance it, accordingly. Not just, I'm only going to listen to this one person and do everything they say.
Right. You can't.
No.
Because everybody has their specialty. And admittedly, specialties are where it's at. I'm a generalist, and that's somewhat of a dinosaur. And it's somewhat of a dinosaur, and I've seen that in my own, and where I have to improve on knowing things more specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about bringing this all together, I will say, listening to you from that sales and marketing perspective, I know I learned a lot about just personal branding from you, which probably, again, wasn't even a term back when we would talk about it, but you would share a lot of wisdom around, I call them Faheyisms, but things like, be careful who you hitch your wagon to. I remember that, is something that I learned from you. As you think about people, especially newer people entering the workforce, what other advice or mantras or maxims do you have that you would be willing to share?
Well, let's start with that one.
Yeah.
First of all, you should pick somebody and hitch your wagon to them. You know what I mean? With a fail safe, with a breakaway.
Yeah.
But you should hitch your wagon. You should find somebody you admire that's done well, and you really, really have to scout it out well.
Yes.
You have to do your diligence. You have to you just because it's a disaster if you hook and how to do that is more in your brain and your gut than you and I can predict for the person. Somebody like you, in your business, can narrow that down for people. Right. You can say, list me people who would do this for you. And my own marketing director that I work with, Lauren, has a great relationship with WVU person, Diane Anderson. She was former president of British Petroleum. Oh, wow. And so those two are mentor and mentee. She doesn't work for my company. She's doing it as a friend to Lauren, but Lauren is just getting so much out of that. But so think about, chances are, more successful people than you think. Just think
Mm-hmm.
about it. Just remember your high school and college friends and think, I wonder what happened to them. And if there was a particular outstanding person, there's a good chance that they've become outstanding in their profession. So
Yeah.
look them up and say and rekindle those relationships. My message here for the bank, for WVU Alumni Association, for me personally, is for goodness sake, stay close to your school.
Mm.
Your school can be a resource to you all your life. It can provide you with all kind of things that at no cost, all kind of
Yeah.
advice, all kind of professional, all kind of at no cost.
Resources. Yeah.
But stay close to your school. And if you're, of course, if your school's done you a lot of good, then throw them a few bucks in donations every year.
Mm-hmm.
But stay no matter who you are. If you don't have the ability to do that, to stay close to your school, find out who the successful grads in your bandwidth
Mm-hmm.
are, that you can talk the old days with. People love to do that. One of the great benefits of my living in Morgantown, remaining in Morgantown, is the fact that I walk up and down the high street on a ball game weekend and I see people so darn happy about being back. It's just like it's just like little kids that in a candy store. They are so happy to be back in Morgantown. They're reminiscing. They're talking about their good days that they had here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great compliment to WVU. But that's the same way in every school, whether it be Georgetown, whether it be UCLA, whether it be whatever. Stay close to them. They are a resource to you. And if you'll notice, the big leaders, the big guys and gals out there that are CEOs, almost all of them stay close to their schools.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I didn't think about that until you said it, but you're right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, there are tremendous resources and networking. When you were talking it made me think about the power of networking and the importance of networking. And you have such an incredible network of people that that know you. I mean, I don't know of anyone, if I say, do you know John Fahey, that says, who's that?
Well,
Never heard of him.
Well, you're kind. You're kind. I mean, you're kind. But I'm very lucky and very privileged that the people have chosen to stay in touch with me, and I've worked at it too.
Yeah,
So
it's
I've
an
worked at it too.
investment.
But it's what made my years at the bank successful. I mean, it's people and the institution itself.
Yeah.
has chose to do business with us and their subsidiaries. And so, for goodness sake, that's something you can do. It's no cost, it's little effort, and it's a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That is great advice. Any other pearls of wisdom, Faheyisms?
Well, we talked about the balance, and we talked about showing up, but it's just a matter of being available.
Yeah.
Being available and sharing the knowledge that you have. And for goodness sake, don't try to share knowledge you don't have.
Yeah.
Go.
True.
Being available and being knowledgeable is there's no and being knowledgeable doesn't mean that you can recite out of this book. Being knowledgeable means that hey, I need a minute, and you can place a phone call and have it and figure it out. You know what I mean? You know somebody that knows the answer to it. Don't try to fake it. Don't try to just figure it, or don't try to also spend 10 days figuring it out.
Right.
Place a phone call.
Yeah.
And then call the person back and say, listen, that's what a leader does.
Yes.
That's what a leader is a Faheyism here is a traffic cop, really. Picture the traffic cop at a New York street corner and saying, come this, is direct. And that's what a true leader does.
Yeah.
And they keep it. And when the traffic's running smoothly, their leadership job is successful.
Oh, that's so true. Love that. Oh, John, what have we left on the table, if anything, that we haven't covered in this conversation?
Well, we're still in an interesting time.
Yeah.
We're still in recruitment of employees is hard. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if 6 months from now it's going to be equally as hard. I don't know when those that that left the workforce. I don't know if they're choosing to come back or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it's hard. My group of interns this year are just a bright light. They're wonderful. They're enthusiastic. They're realistic. They're smart. And but also when I go to I see how hard our recruiters are working.
Yeah.
How hard our recruiters are working to get a spot filled.
Mm-hmm.
And it's recruiters. You were a recruiter, and I'm sure it was religious with you that don't take second best or don't settle.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I don't. There's a lot of first bests out there that aren't. A lot of meetings, a lot of fairs, a lot of recruitment efforts that you can't get first best right now.
You're right.
So I wish I knew if I knew the answer, I'd be up there with Bill Gates probably, but I don't. I don't know what the answer to that is. I think that someone like you can help that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that coaching people up, if you will.
Yes.
You could turn them in from second best to first best.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where key players like you and your profession need to focus on, is because it's hard. It's hard to find. And I'm not just talking about Morgantown, West Virginia. Our company goes as far south as Charleston, South Carolina, and as far north as Bethesda, Maryland, as far east as Washington, D.C., and as far west as Ohio. Mm. So those are good states to indicate Virginia and North and South Carolina and West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. And you're not going to get a better barometer.
Right.
And we've done a lot of things. We were named the COVID Employer of the Year for the Greater Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's because, and we implemented a days off policy if you had COVID, a days off policy if your kids had COVID or family. We initiated hazard pay for those that had to come in, mm-hmm. and we initiated policies, and therefore the Washington Business Journal, a very credible, named us the COVID Employer of the Year. And I know people are, and I'm the worst of the bunch, that are so tired of talking about COVID, but we can't admit that it's a new day.
Oh yeah, we're still being impacted by it.
We're still being impacted. It's a new day, yeah. And I just want to say again. In order to stay the same, we have to change.
Yes.
In order for things to go back to normal, mm-hmm. we have to change.
Yeah, and that's hard for people.
All of us.
Mm-hmm.
All of us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. Well, Johnny, I'm glad I hitched my wagon to you.
Well, that's
many years ago.
I'm flattered that you did, and look at you. I'm very proud of you.
Thank
Laura, to reiterate, Laura had a senior position with Mylan Pharmaceuticals. It was a worldwide position, not just a local one, and she has done an amazing things, starting at Centra Bank as a human resource assistant, mm-hmm. weren't you?
Mm-hmm.
And so starting at a tiny organization, going to a worldwide stock exchange organization, doing well there, and now your own shingle. So I couldn't be prouder of you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, John. Thanks for taking time to be on the show today.
My pleasure. Anytime.
All right. Now, will you just give me one more minute of your time for a lightning round?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course. Of course. This is your signature, isn't it?
This is my Thank you for knowing that.
This is your signature.
Signature. All right. I have to get my timer pulled up here, John. All right. Let me get my questions. I didn't have them in front of me here. We'll get them here. All right. 1 minute to answer as many as you can get through.
Okay.
It's like Family Feud here. Okay. All right. What season best fits your personality?
Spring.
Okay. What's your most used emoji in text?
The laugh.
Love it.
The heavy laugh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With the tears coming.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. What book, song, movie, podcast has had the greatest impact on your life?
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
It's great. What's something about you that surprises people when they first hear it?
I've never been on a cruise
Oh,
ship.
huh.
Don't know why.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've had the good fortune of traveling
Yeah, you've traveled a lot.
for companies and personally.
Yeah.
I've never been on a cruise ship,
Huh.
and I've met Queen Elizabeth.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's that. But too long of a story for a lightning round.
All right, last one. What celebrity would you want to play you in a movie?
Um, that's
You can answer that one.
Charles Bronson.
Oh. I love it. I love it. All right. This was good. That was a good lightning round. And thank you again for being here. And folks, that's all the time we have today. And so until next time, keep shining, everyone.